Call the meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What's that? You happy so far? Yep.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Panic, second by Councilman Pacer. Approve financial report, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Approval of town board meeting minutes of June 12, 2023.
So,
Second.
Motion by Councilman Tran, second by Councilman Panic to approve the town board meeting minutes of June 12, 2023. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Yeah, right here. Here, use mine. Maybe it's in there. Approval of the fire department report. Your Stafford volunteer fire department answered 24 calls last month. In those calls were many EMS and multiple MVAs. The department members completed 42 hours of training last month. Included in that was hosting the East Battalion Mercy Flight Training Class. Please stay safe. Tim McDowell, Stafford Volunteer Fire Department Fire Chief. Any questions? If not, approve.
So moved.
second.
Motion by Councilman Pacer, second by Councilman Deason to approve the fire department report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Approval of the ZEO report. Must be in here.
Here.
Got it? That's all in one. Any questions?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Councilman Pacer, second by Councilman Panic to approve the code and zoning enforcement officer's report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
So I guess a good summary on this is so far we have 43 permits or variances for the year. So half the year. Which gives us an idea of our activity going to go, right?
Approval of the assessor's report.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Councilman Deason, second by Councilman Pacer to approve the assessor report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Do you think you should read, since Lori went through the work of putting it in, the 3 bullet points about what,
I'll read the whole thing.
All right.
It is there. The assessor's annual report for 2023 roll was completed and sent to the New York State Office of Equalization Rates for filing. A copy was given to the town clerk, and a copy is on file in the assessor's office. On June 15th, I attended the Genesee County Assessors Association meeting. We discussed the volunteer firefighter exemption. With preliminary calculations, the exemption would only be beneficial if every taxing entity adopted it, especially schools. Currently, the county and surrounding towns do not plan on adopting it. We also discussed senior limits being increased. Kevin Andrews, county director, said he recently spoke with the manager's office to reconsider increasing the county limit, and he will investigate it further. If the county increases their limits, the towns typically follow what the county does. Surrounding towns do not plan to allow for medical expenses, interest income for IRAs, or adopt the use of just adjusted gross income for the limited income senior exemption. It is my recommendation that we follow what the other towns are doing so that there's consistency throughout the county. On June 23rd, we received the final special franchise values from the state. They remain unchanged from the tentative values they sent in February. I will be on vacation from July 28th through August 2nd. Genesee County Watershed Committee.
There's 2 of us here.
Yeah,
Hi,
okay.
Jim Seiler and Peter Lent.
The chair.
We're actually members of the Owaca Creek Watershed Committee. We're here to talk about not only the Owaca Creek Watershed Committee, we want to talk about Black Creek since your town and on the other, we did the same thing when we met with the town of Bethany. We talked about both watersheds. We're in the process of, is it all right if we sit down? Is that gonna?
Yeah, sit down, or
Uh,
as long as everybody can hear you.
I'm gonna move my chair out in case I don't want to miss a hand if anybody
If
wants
you
to
want to
ask
get out
questions.
of her, you want to make
We've been in the process of going around all the municipalities in the Owaca Creek watershed. There's 26 municipalities reaching from Gainesville and Wyoming County up into Scottsville. But we thought with Stafford and Bethany, it'd be nice to also mention Black Creek. And I did notice when I was looking through your town website, the Black Creek watershed plan was mentioned in the comprehensive plan is being in the process of being developed. And when your plan was developed in 2009, we were actually working on the Owaca Creek watershed plan and the Black Creek plan. They were being done concurrently by the Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Council. They were the main persons working on the plan, along with a lot of support from like the Soil and Water Conservation Districts, DEC, a lot of private landowners who were interested, a lot of other organizations, a lot of fishing organizations on Owaca Creek. When you get like north of Leroy, there's a lot of public fishing access, and a lot of the fishermen and fishing groups were interested too. But it's a broad group. We did have some farmers that were interested. It'd be nice to get more farmers, but typically, farmers are, so constrained with time and don't have a lot of time to sit in a lot of other committees. And I know in our travels, we have met where some farms have been on like town boards, which is really nice to see. But it'd be nice if we could maybe get, you know, some more interest. That's one of the things I'm gonna kind of follow up on doing. But anyway, what we wanted to do was introduce the watershed management plan, which was completed in 2014 and approved by the Department of State in 2015, and also the Black Creek plan. So when I'm talking about one, I'm really kind of talking about the other in most instances. There are some important differences between Black Creek watershed and the Wacker Creek watershed. But in terms of the plan, they were pretty much done at the same time. And what we've been trying to do in reaching out to all the municipalities, we've been trying to review the overall plan and also review the portions that were pertinent to each of the municipalities. So we ended up, if all the council members have had a chance to see the booklets, these are the sections of both plans that were pertinent to the town of Stafford. And out of the 72 overall recommendations, there were like 51. So when you go through the booklet, the first long set of pages, which is about maybe 5 or 6 pages in, you see these long sheets. These were the recommendations for the town. And actually not just, when I'm saying the town, I'm just not meaning, you know, town government. I'm talking for the whole area of the town. So there's a couple things in there relative to like codes for on-site wastewater treatment systems. And typically that would be something that would be addressed by like the county health department or county government. But it's still in there because most of our rural communities, that's one thing that we kind of have in common. You know, or I should say a lot of the municipalities, there aren't any actually wastewater treatment systems, there's very few. And most people are using, you know, homeowner on-site systems, so that's mentioned in there. But the overall recommendations, the 51 that are pertinent to the town, they're actually based on like 12 categories or areas of concern. So if you go from that large set of sheets forward 2 pages, there's actually a list of like 12 areas of concern, going from like coordination, collaboration, and partnership. What was inferred there was one of the recommendations in the plan was for communities, if they could work together doing like multi-community, you know, projects. Like one thing a lot of the conservation districts have done is they schedule like workshops for like the village and town DPWs and highway departments to, you know, to get extra training. So in other words, kind of working together and, you know, kind of collaborating and working on things that are kind of a common need throughout all the, you know, the rural communities. Agriculture is big, and that, you know, we kind of rely on soil and water conservation districts to work with farms, and most farms, particularly like the big CAFO-sized farms, are actually working under permits that were issued by DEC, the CAFO permits. And then the smaller farms, for the most part, the smaller farms, conservation and environmental programs are voluntary. So most of the way the district works through those would be through it's called the AEM program, Ag Environmental Management. It's kind of a tiered planning process where you work through different worksheets that are pertinent for the different types of agriculture that you're doing the plan for. Like there's different modules and sets for like say a dairy or a livestock operation versus maybe like someone that's like a, you know, cash crop or fruits or vegetables and things like that. A big thing that's kind of another common area that's found throughout most municipalities is you know, the challenges we face with like stormwater management and erosion control, particularly like erosion control, like where it probably affects the municipalities more would be like stream bank erosion problems, things like that. I mentioned the on-site wastewater treatment system. That's kind of a county type of initiative. The wastewater treatment plants, you know, we're not talking about very many. We're probably, how many would you say we have for Black Creek and Oaxaca Creek?
Well, there's less than there were, so that's a good thing. We got about there's two in Oaxaca, Warsaw and Leroy. And we got Byron and smaller plants in Byron and Virgin. And then, the more developed areas in Shiloh. Did I miss anything?
So actually, there's actually a few more in Black Creek than,
Yeah, they're smaller, they're package plants usually, but they're smaller communities. And I think, one thing I'd like to say overall in both watersheds, for starters, you know that in this case, Oaxaca Creek doesn't make up a lot of area of the town of Stafford. But Black Creek certainly does. It's the major, most of your town is in that watershed. But I was available, you know, it was good, I could find a good picture of what Oaxaca Creek looks like on the Covell Bridge. So that's a pretty example of what. But in terms of water quality, which is how these watershed groups, there was a watershed group for Black Creek, was the Black Creek Coalition. I mean, I don't know if any of you folks remember, but I hate to say this, but 6 years ago, we brought together all the municipalities from both watersheds, all the organizations that are listed in those management plans. It's just not the municipalities and the watershed group and the state agencies and the county agencies. But there's several other organizations mentioned as partners or stakeholders that are supposed to assist the municipalities and the other agencies in the watershed to try to attempt to adopt some of the best management practices that are laid out in the plan. There's plenty, like, the number 71 was actually strategies, activities, management practices that we believe will improve the water quality and the water resources within these watersheds. So the two main problems with water quality are related to what Jim has just mentioned. Nutrient enrichment, mainly that happens from sewer plants. It happens from on-site wastewater treatment facilities that are either faulty or need repair or just too close to the creek. Also, and runoff that has nutrients in it, fertilizers and manure from agricultural fields is also a big part of what in terms of nutrients. And it was also mentioned sediment erosion in the stream channels. So, and I noticed, I haven't passed this by Jim yet, but I noticed the county just went through and it's moving along on a resiliency plan. I don't know if any of you folks saw any of those plans that they have. They really don't. They mainly centering in on Batavia because the flooding is part of the resiliency, and Attica, which also has a lot of problems. But eventually it's a county-wide plan, and a lot of the projects that they would be developing would be ones that would also improve the situations in the watersheds. So if you have the opportunity to get involved with that, and that there's funding for those types of things, probably from the infrastructure capital projects. So anyway, I digress. But those, I wanted to just let you know what the main concerns we have with the watersheds, and we're trying to improve both the land, the water, and also the land next to the streams, which is, you have to look at the whole thing, because that's the environment that's needed to be important to have streams healthy. So Jim, I jumped in and I probably took you off track.
No, you didn't. A lot of the information, when you read through, you'll probably notice there's things you might have been working on or addressed that were actually after or during the time this plan was written. So what we're actually anxious to do, hopefully even this year, we're going to try to have our plan updated. So we'll probably be back in contact with you, just to make sure the sections that are pertinent to the town of Stafford, we'd like to have them as up to date as possible. But we'd also like to see if the town is interested in appointing someone as kind of like a liaison or like a point person. We'd like to have somebody from each of the municipalities we work with that might be interested in going beyond just looking at the booklet here, actually going in and being a little more familiar with the entire plan, which unfortunately when the plan was developed, the town of Wheatland was the sponsor. We didn't have a lot of funding for it. We actually used some state funding. And unfortunately there weren't any printing costs put into the plan, so there's very few copies of the entire document. So most of us, when we want to look at the whole document, we have to kind of fall back into reading it online, which makes it a little tougher to read. I understand. I'm finally getting used to it. I hated it at first, because I'm kind of the old school person. I'm used to looking at books and paper and notebooks. So reading something out of computer was not something I really cared about doing. But finally, you kind of learn some shortcuts, and it makes it a little more manageable. So if this is something you're going to be able to share with like your planning board, I can just send them the links to the whole document, or we could also send them electronic copies of the booklet if they need it.
The links are in there, in the second page of the book.
But if you could offer up a name, and it certainly wouldn't have to be tonight, I could maybe get back to Barb in a few days, and if you guys have talked about it amongst yourselves, and somebody's really interested. Mainly what we were interested in doing is having someone a little more familiar with the whole plan, the part that was pertinent to the town of Stafford, and also if they're interested, we'd like to send them. We have a monthly meeting on the third Monday of every month, and I'm the secretary of the WAC committee, so I could send out like our meeting minutes so they have an idea of what we're talking about from one month to the next. We do have a rep from DEC that's part of the Great Lakes program, Ryan Elliott, and I know he's mentioned it, a few other people have mentioned. They're really interested in seeing if the Black Creek watershed group could kind of get reactive again in meeting. So that's something, I don't know, maybe we could have a little bit of talk. We do know some of the members that were part of it. Maybe we can get a few names and maybe at least get something started. At least if we could get their plan updated too, because probably when ours is done, we're probably going to work again through Genesee Finger Lakes, and it really just would make a lot of sense to have them both. There's such a big portion, the second and third largest watersheds of the Genesee River. So they're a big part of the Genesee River. The Genesee River organization called the Genesee River Watch. I'm sure they'd be anxious to see it. Anybody that's associated with like Lake Ontario, I'm sure they'd like to see people, meeting and talking about addressing any problems or anything that might be occurring on like the tributaries. So it definitely could be a nice collaborative effort.
There's a stormwater system here in the hamlet, And several years ago, they went through and made sure that nobody's, that you didn't have septic tanks dumping into that.
TG did?
And I think they got cleared it up at that time,
Oh, good.
but it still exists.
I did spend a little time looking at your comprehensive plan, and I was wondering, there were a couple sections of like updates built into the plan. Is that something the planning board, or not updates, I should say reviews? There were a couple different review processes. And I was wondering, do you know, does the planning board go through and do a review on those?
I don't know. If you got nothing else to do, go to their meeting.
Okay. The reason I asked is one of the things that was cited in the plan that they were interested in looking at the Black Creek plan when it was finished. And when they finished the comprehensive plan, it was in 2009, and our WAC and Black Creek plans didn't get finished for 4 or 5 more years later. So that might be something that when they were going to do a review or an update, they'd have access. There's really, for anybody that looks through both the documents, there's a lot of information in there on soils. There's a lot of information on the sub-watersheds of Black Creek. There's really a lot of good information that they could use for their plan.
Would you suggest we, in our search for a liaison to the town, we should go knock on the door of the planning department?
That's what we'll probably do.
Somehow, I don't,
Now, related to that, so what you're trying to do is trying to get better interface between town government, our planning board, and the watershed. There's a couple of, I got a couple of questions. When we do reviews or a redo on our comprehensive plan, would you folks like to know about it so that you can have your input fresh when we're looking for it?
Yeah, that would be great.
All right. Number 2, since we would probably draw from the planning board for this type of liaison, would it be factual to tell them that if they're going to work on a rewrite of, not a rewrite, but an update of the comprehensive plan, it would behoove them to become a liaison with you folks, because it would expand their knowledge of how drainage should work.
Yeah, that would, actually, since we've been going through the meeting process with all the municipalities, so far we've been invited to the Village of Warsaw meeting, and we're also going to be meeting with the town of Orangeville too at some point with the planning board, so it has gotten us a little more involved with meeting.
The advantage of coming to the town is that you can work with the state, you can work with a lot of people, but they don't have people out there. Now, you run into change points. Good example, when we evaluate a site plan, if there is enough excavation going on, then they have to have a drainage plan also. And I noticed that in your recommendations, you recommend regulations or rules for stormwater runoff. Now, we basically go by what the state tells us for.
yeah, construction purpose.
Yeah, is that adequate? Do you feel that's adequate? If we follow the state, should we worry about it if we're following the state
I
recommendations?
think that's what those regulations refer to, is the blue book, or some of the details. I don't want to go too deep in the weeds, but
No.
but that would be your BMPs for sediment and erosion control, and maintaining the fact that you don't want to have any more water leaving the site than you would if you didn't do something. So, yeah, basically those are in your the shortened version. What's specific for the town is in the books we give you, but there's references to sections of the one of the sections in the larger volume that gives like draft ordinances, or that maybe the planning board would be more apt to look at to see. And I don't want, we don't want to substitute for the planning department either in the county, because this planning department's really on top of stuff, so.
Now, here's a question that has nothing to do with any of this. You guys volunteer, you don't get paid for any of this,
That's
right?
Right.
How many hours a month do you put into?
Lately, it's been, the last couple of years, it's been quite a bit.
No, well, I've been in a couple of organizations. The Genesee Rural Watch, that looks at the whole room. I'm a board member on that as well, but I'm gonna drop that and stick with the Walker. It's getting over it, I got enough stuff to do. If I don't start cleaning things, dumpsters gonna show up outside the.
Well, it'd be a pretty good estimate that you're 10 hours a month, 20 hours a month?
No,
No?
I'd say,
Well, that's our own choice.
Yeah.
I retired in March of 2021, or May of 2021, and I just sort of didn't have enough time. I wanted to spend more time with this, and I just didn't have it when I was working, but all of a sudden I have all kinds of time now, and I'm sure it makes my wife real happy too. I'm keeping busy, and
about 20 hours a week.
Wow.
yeah, that might be right.
I mean, there's a
And
number of things associated.
in a world of lack of community participation, that's very impressive.
Well, there's a lot of retired folks around that would like to get a hook in.
It doesn't have to be that way, though. We're actually trying to attract some new members that, you know, are interested.
Yeah.
Right now, we've kind of got a 9-member board of directors, and each person has a little bit of a different background. And it's worked really well. Everyone's sort of complimented one another. And it would be great if we could just get a couple more people like that. I think it would.
And we do have good contacts with DEC and like I said, the soil and water conservation. The boots on the ground for this operation is the local county soil and water conservation district. They're the contacts with the farms, and that's half the battle. So, and they help out the highway superintendents as well.
Then that was my last question. Steve, probably out of anybody, you would see changes in erosion patterns.
Oh, yeah.
Because you've got the majority of the roads. I mean, there's county and state roads, but you've got the majority. So.
County soil and water is good. Got a good group up there. Good guys.
And so, what we really gotta do now is figure out after 6 years, or maybe by the time we get there, 10 years, you know, how much is all this done to improve something? That's what we're gonna try to work on.
Barbara, you can get something off to Bill?
So,
Any more
contact
questions?
the plans. After that.
I have your contact, I'll include you in on it.
Okay, thanks, Barb.
You're welcome.
Anybody have any questions of the gentleman?
Thank you very much.
I sit on the board for Godfrey's Pond, the preservation there. So I'm not sure what you handed her a packet, if they received one, or maybe I could get that information from you, or get something to.
If you want, I could send you the electronic link for.
Sure, and then I could go ahead and forward that over
Yeah,
to you.
if you want to just jot your email down there,
Sure.
sure, I can land it.
We've been bringing up some of that up at some of our meetings, so.
Stafford's Pond was an active, and actively involved in Black Creek to begin with. So,
Yeah, one of the challenges we face, since we've got a large area we're covering, you know, if we visit with a supervisor and board and planning board, and we don't stay real regular and meeting, next time you go, there's a couple new people, so you're kind of like, you know, starting over. So that's just the challenge for us is, and I think if we have a liaison, contact person with the town, I think that would help a long way with that. Would keep us kind of in the loop with, with someone new, and, we can pass along what we've been talking about, so the new person kind of feels like they're up to speed with what we were doing up to that point.
Okay.
Well, this was supposed to be an introduction, so
Yeah.
thanks for giving us as much time as you gave us. I'm gonna leave you guys maps of only a part of your town, but there is a map book for Black Creek, but I ran out of them, so.
I'll send it out to you tomorrow.
There you go.
Thank you.
Glad to do
Well, I
that.
don't need that.
Oh, is that?
Item number 8 on the
Agenda.
agenda is a resolution
Oh, this is
38,
where I think I'm- all right,
retention
thank you.
and disposition schedule.
Thank you
Adoption,
very much, everyone, for.
Thank you.
resolution 38 dated July 10th, 2023, adoption of retention and disposition
Have your
schedule
letterhead or something?
for New York local government records,
Yeah. I can,
LGS-1.
It'll come from secretarialwacca.org.
Okay, thank you.
Resolved by the town board of the town of Stafford that the retention and disposition schedule for New York local government records, LGS-1, issued pursuant to Article 57A of the Arts and Cultural Affairs Law and containing legal minimum retention periods for local government records, is hereby adopted for use by all officers in legally disposing of valueless records listed therein. Further resolved that in accordance with Article 57A, only those records will be disposed of that are described in retention and disposition schedule for New York local government records, LGS 1, after they have met the minimum retention periods described therein. Only those records will be disposed of that do not have sufficient administrative, fiscal, legal, or historical value to merit retention beyond established legal minimum periods. Any questions or comments?
One of the things with this is basically they really haven't changed what the retention schedule is. But what they have done is, since they had various retention schedules for various functions, they made where you had similarities where that was separate sections. They had a good way to put it, where there was commonality between, say, us, a school district, a special district. So now you have a common, and then you have specific to your,
Whatever your function is.
so you could take the former one, you could be following the retention schedule, you actually would be complying to this schedule.
Right.
But if there's a change, the change is it could be a general change, it could be specific to you change. That's all I got. It's the only difference I saw read on that.
Motion to adopt this?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Panic, second by Councilman Schramm, to adopt Resolution 39, correction to Resolution 28. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried.
Yeah, it's,
Skip the,
yeah, the title of it.
Town of Stafford has approved Resolution 28 of 2023 to hire summer recreation employees. And whereas Resolution 28 states that Lori Pocock will be hired as director at a salary of $4,000 for the year 2023, and Sarah McKenzie will be hired as recreation supervisor at a rate of $19.50 per hour for 2023. If this was incorrect, and should state that Lori Pocock will be hired as recreation aide at a rate of $4,000. Sarah McKenzie declined the position. Therefore, Alexis Egme will be hired as recreation aide at a rate of $19.50 per hour for 2023. Kaylee Wright will be hired as recreation aide at a rate of $16.50 per hour for 2023. Therefore, the summer recreation program shall have a staff of Lori Pocock as recreation aide at a rate of $4,000 for the year 2023. Alexis Egme as recreation aide at a rate of $19.50 per hour. Andrew Pocock as recreation leader at a rate of $17.50 per hour. Connor Wright as recreation aide at a rate of $16.50 per hour. Kaylee Wright at a rate of $16.50 per hour. Morgan Beverly as recreation aide at a rate of $16.50 per hour. And Lily Stelica as recreation aide at a rate of $14.50 per hour. Any questions?
Just to catch up on the wording here, we had both the change of who did what, because somebody turned it down, right?
Yes, they're
And-
declined.
And it looks like
We didn't meet the criteria for what.
that's right.
What the county.
What the
The
county job description
Job
is,
description was,
we
was
had
gonna
to
change.
adjust our titles to
Right.
their
Just to match
description.
what she did.
But everybody's doing the same as what they did last
Right.
year.
Yep.
Same job as to, it was what they were appointed to start with, it just
Yeah.
a name change.
Motion to do this?
So.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Deason, second by Councilman Panic. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Approved on a 5-0. Resolution 40. Toshiba printer. Upgraded Toshiba printer for town hall use. Whereas the town of Stafford has leased a copier/printer/scanner from Toshiba Model E Studio 3005 AC at a price of $337.32 per month, including parts, labor, travel, and supplies. Everything except for paper, staples, and applicable taxes. Whereas the contract will soon expire, and a proposed copier, printer, scanner, fax, eStudio 3025 AC with the state contract number will cost $291.93 per month, with the same stipulations of including parts, labor, travel, and supplies except for paper, staples, and applicable taxes. Therefore, the town of Stafford released the Toshiba eStudio 3025 AC with the state contract number PM 68135 at a cost of $291. $291,933 per month, which includes parts, labor, travel, and supplies, except for paper, staples, and applicable taxes. Amount of Any questions?
You're looking to get a new printer, is that basically it? You're looking to get a new printer?
cheaper.
Yeah.
We actually entered a cheaper contract, so.
Yeah. I just wanted to understand, that's all, that was.
Motion to do this?
So moves.
Fancy.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Deason, second by Councilman Casey. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 5-0. Next item, Resolution 41, dated July 10th, 2023, raise credit card limit for highway superintendent and town clerk. Whereas the current credit card limit is for $1,000, whereas the limit needs to be increased from $1,000 to $3,000 due to increase in overall cost of expenses. Therefore, the credit card limit will increase from $1,000 to $3,000 for the highway superintendent and town clerk. Any questions, comments? Motion to do this?
So
So-
moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Deason, second by Councilman Panic. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Well, I, you guys want it in there, you want to talk about it? Just-
Yeah,
if you
we
don't-
still have the resolution, obviously, because we didn't get the Dan line notification.
Mhm.
Ron and I met with the town of Batavia, what, 2 weeks ago, Dan Lane, their zoning code enforcement officer there, to attempt to enter into a municipal agreement with the town of Batavia to provide coverage for building code enforcement on an emergency and temporary basis in the absence of the town of Stafford code enforcement officer, or basically emergency backup. Dan agreed to it. Obviously it has to go to their board and bring it back here as a resolution. We'll have to do that. We just didn't get the copy of the agreement from him yet because he was on vacation, but we'll do that next month. Definitely agreed to it. If we ever have to work into a municipal or minimal cost, we've already done that at $20 to $200 per inspection, and Dan didn't think it'd even come to something like that. The other thing we discussed while we were there what's the future of our code enforcement officer? And we know that Gene is looking at only about a year to year and a half in his retire. We're looking for a candidate, we think, we still are, to try to fill that spot in between. We discussed it with Batavia of taking over on a contractual basis. They're interested, however, they have their plate is kind of full right now. And they're looking maybe a year to year and a half out. To do that, there is a possibility if the winds change just right, they're looking to hire someone else themselves, if they can find a candidate, and they may be interested sooner when that time frame comes. We throw out a couple of variables where we would just do zoning, they would do code enforcement. They were agreeable to that if it came to that. They were agreeable to do it all as a contractual basis like they do for similar towns in the county. Again, as the winds change for them, they have to get enough manpower to get that, and they're looking a year to year and a half. In the meantime, because of Gene's potential departure, we're gonna look to try to hire somebody and make that a two-person again. There's a lot to that office to get a qualified candidate. They're having trouble at Batavia finding somebody qualified. Obviously, the person we're gonna get, we don't think we're gonna get a trained person. We have to train them and get them in there to work with Gene, to get them up to speed. So, there's a lot of variables here. I'm not sure exactly where it's gonna go yet. Hopefully, we can find somebody. I'll let Ron speak a little bit more about that. Ron's got some good ideas about it. But that's our talk with Batavia, and if it comes to it, hopefully within a year to a year and a half or sooner, we could actually enter into some type of contract that they would take over our code enforcement, and we would either do zoning, or they would take everything if it came to that, if we couldn't find a viable candidate. So, that's where we're at with that. A couple of things we discussed, the positives of it. Cost was, he gave us a variable of what other towns pay. He thinks it's around 15,000 is all they charge one township. We're very similar in size to Bavilion, and that's the one they talked about. So he thinks that cost was somewhere around there. The availability is the same as here, but it would all be by phone contact and email. Computerization, all records would go to their computerization. We would have access to that. We wouldn't have writable access to that computerization, but it would allow our zoning code enforcement, or our zoning board of appeals, as well as our planning board, to have access to it. They're currently in a grant where they scan all records. He would look at whether the grant would cover our records, since they would take that over. Something we're going to talk about anyway if we can in the future. And how do they do enforcement for code and zoning? They actively do it the same way any zoning code enforcement officer does. They act on complaints, and then they'll go from there. They gave an example of how they do it. They basically enforce the state law off of zoning. And they just make the notification to the people, just like we do with that training we went through. It goes from there. Communication with the board, they would send someone to the meetings if we have to, if zoning requires one. If the planning board or we require it, they'll send somebody. And recording in the system, like they said, everything is online for them, and we would have we wouldn't have writable access. What they've done with the other towns is we would have access to it, and again, the zonings and so all of our records would be computerized. So that was some of the things we talked about. It sounds promising if that's the way we have to go. So, good.
Alan, did you mention that the reason why they weren't going to be available is because they took on Alabama stamp?
Yeah, the stamp project.
Which kind of...
Huge administrative thing that just bit them, kind of got them, until they can get a set structure, and that's going to continue for them, until they can get a set structure going forward. That's kind of why they had to, not commit to anything immediately. And again, they're also looking for another person to kind of help them out too. They have an engineer on staff, that's another positive. And they're not, obviously very experienced, and Dan's outstanding at what he does. So that's what we were looking at.
They were looking to us, how much of a backlog do we have, because Pavilion seemed to have gone smoothly for them. And
Yes.
they incorporated it well. Surprisingly enough, the village of Alexander
Yeah,
had
their
a lot of issues, and that slowed them down.
Right.
So we went over where we were with, what kind of properties we have, how big of a backlog list we have, and they didn't seem too surprised by that. The other thing they'll do is we can do a phase-in, and if the person meets the qualifications they have, along with taking on the town, they'll take on whoever we have doing it. So that way, what's nice about it is knowing about it before we add a second. It doesn't look, Gene has been talking about a time horizon of somewhere between a year and a half and 2 years.
A year to a year and a half, actually.
Oh, all right. So it might be close getting them to do it. So having our own person, then we have to make the decision. Do we want to separate out code and zoning? I know when we built down there was nothing local for code. You had to go through Rochester. That was my exposure. Actually, it went quite smoothly.
And Dan had that suggestion that if you decided to do that, code is code everywhere, pretty much. And it's not much, it doesn't change really. Zoning it's pretty much almost the same here in the county. So there are some quirks, little quirks in your own community with different projects or whatever. So if you wanted your own person as just a zoning, that would work too. He said, not that they can't do it, but that would work for us too if we went that route.
Although they seem to be handling zoning fine.
In Pavilion and Alexander, so, and there's no issue. I talked to the town Pavilion board member, and they said it's been outstanding. They said it's worked very well for them, there's been no issues. Yes,
Would they also take over if it were to go to court?
no, they would go to court as a witness, but the town would actually prosecute
So,
it.
okay, so the town would still keep that
Yes.
portion of it, but that would be part of their responsibility then as coming in.
It would be no different than
Wouldn't
you
change a
have.
thing.
Okay.
Whatever Gene does now, they would do for
Wouldn't
us,
change.
including the interaction with the court,
That wouldn't change at all.
Thank you.
which they appear to be a little bit more practiced at than.
Yes.
So all in all, it was a good presentation. Like I said, we kind of got surprised that the stamp would be such a barrier, but when you think about it,
And
there's
that's
a
all
lot
that's
that's
right.
going to go into it. So I think last month we asked letters go out to, because we had 4 people that we thought were hireable. We hired Gene back.
Left 3.
That left 3, so we sent letters out to 3, and we got 2 back. So I think what we should do is interview the 2 again, see if their circumstances have changed.
And we could tell them what the future holds, or what the impending possible future holds, so they know straight up where they're gonna be.
If you really look at it, the dropping down to the town, going from state to town, probably was too much. But I think everybody thought it would blend well with the zoning officer.
Yeah.
So,
And obviously, one of the big positives for Batavia was having that engineer on staff. I mean,
Mhm.
they just run down the hall and say, makes it easy where if we get into a situation like that, we'd have to hire an engineering staff to do that.
right.
If we couldn't beg Batavia to help us. And actually, they've been helping other municipalities. I know they help hiring quite a bit, and they've helped Alabama, so.
Well, they've helped us.
Yeah, helped us.
They filled in without fee, without nothing. They just filled
They
in.
just filled in and helped us out one other time, so. And actually, Gene's been in contact with them a couple of times, so they've helped us quite a bit.
Maybe, we have an ongoing problem that we've had right along, and I just wonder if the town of Batavia might have some answers to that.
I think he had some very good examples of how they move forward with some of those issues, so, yeah, I think if we have an issue, I think we could directly contact. He says anytime you have an issue, you want some assistance, anybody from the town can contact him and help, he'll help. So we can get Gene to contact, or one of us can contact him. So he was very welcoming, and he's a type A type guy, bang, 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 and, he's busy, very busy. Like a lot going on.
Again, the advantages are they're big enough where they can organize their offices well.
Yeah.
They're already automated as far as record retention goes. They seem to have their procedures down pat, easily understood. They have access to an engineer, like that. So again,
And all their
that speeds
documents.
things up.
Yeah, and all their documents are online, so if anybody from the town wants a permit, you can download it yourself and start to fill it out. If you need assistance from him, you can call the office and make an appointment, or over the phone or an email, and that's how they can do it. So they keep everything online, and what they would do is basically, once it's approved, they would email it back to Barb as a clerk, and the money can, all the transaction happens here in the account, and it's all approved.
And they can shift around the workload for who works better with who.
With,
Sounds good.
yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, it's, was a very productive kind of meeting, if we can, number one thing, we solved that intermunicipal agreement, which we'll have next month anyway, we'll get it written, at least we'll know, on paper, we'll have them as a backup anyway. Get something.
Right. Now, one of the things he brought up, I could cover it either now or roundtable, is if you recall, Batavia was behind in their solar law, and they really never had one. And then they started getting solar farms, then they did a moratorium, then they did a solar law. Whereas we did it where we had the solar law, and then they started coming in. Now, one of the things, if you look at our law, we've emphasized the surrounding, just the surrounding people would really, I mean, there's really no effect if you're nowhere near a farm, it doesn't affect you.
Right.
One of the things that we're gonna have is, let's say the state comes in and says, well, the solar farm's over 20, you're out, we're in. We should have a, what's it called, a community
Yeah.
community host agreement, and one of the things we asked them to do is send us a copy of theirs.
So, you know, we do get a solar farm, under Article 10, when the state comes in, at least we have something where you can negotiate on that host agreement to get some type of funds back from them. It's worked for them.
Well, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's worked for them anyway. They've increased their fee structure tremendously, and they haven't batted an eye. So he said they paid.
Well, and the other beauty is, let's face it, these things produce no jobs. Between either pilot or the state mandated how you tax it, and the, what's it called, discounted cash flow net from the solar farm can be pretty darn low. So basically what the state said is, don't tax them, go with the pilot agreements. You know, we've talked about that before, so the host agreement is a chance to at least not have, if we get one, not have them cost us money.
Right.
So,
We should get that this month, look at that. That's a good point.
so probably should include that, hopefully we'll have that, we should include that on next month's agenda. Do we want to set interviews?
We could do that probably for,
Do we want to throw out a tentative date and then?
Barb, can you see if they're available? Let's look at some calendar time here. We're into the 10th already of the next week, and then you have. Does anybody have any issues with the week of the 24th to the 28th? And give about a week's notice, 10 days notice?
Yep.
Is that good then? So maybe the 25th, 26th, there's no planning or anything like that, I don't think.
26th would be planning.
Planning, 26th.
Is it garden club or historical, one or the other?
Historical.
Historical, thank you.
Okay,
So,
so,
25th?
yeah, is that okay?
I can't do 27th.
Okay.
I'm tied up 20th and 27th.
25th, oh, yeah, 25th.
25th.
Okay, 25th would work for me.
No, I can't do the 27th. That's a Thursday?
That's a
Yeah.
Thursday.
It's
Yeah.
also
So
court.
25th, a Tuesday is okay?
So far.
What else? Jimmy, you okay with it? I'm okay with it.
We
We'll see if they're available. Alternative date, if they're not, you wanna go into the month of, first week of August? Go to the first week of August, the 1st?
That'd be easier. Paid better.
You wanna go to the 1st? First work better?
Why don't we go with the first, and if they can't make the first, we'll, whoever, I mean, we're already talking
Right,
two.
2 people, so we'll figure it out after that. So let's tentatively say the 1st of August, and we'll re-interview.
Bring them in the 27th if they just absolutely can't make it.
Right, we'll figure something else out after that.
It's 7 p.m.
Cheers, something else, you guys?
7 o'clock.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, unless there's something that,
No.
without Gene, you know, you should have Gene.
He is a
Yeah, everything's position here.
Do these code zoning guys have to live locally, Ron?
What's that?
Do they have to be local?
No, no. We have a resolution that allows that. But we do favor local. Out of the 3 candidates, 2 of them were local.
Okay.
And if you look at how we hired Gene, Gene had worked here before, he was a natural candidate. A short path to certification, worked right out. All 3 of the candidates, so it's 2 local, 1 from Batavia, all would require going through the training. 2 out of the 3 had construction and construction supply experience. So they, you know, it's not like they're walking in cold. That was their occupation. So, yeah, again, good local candidates. So,
So is this in an attempt to get a second person, or?
yes.
Okay.
Because it's gonna take, honestly, Gene's looking at a year to a year and a half max that he's gonna be here. By the time we get that person trained and get them on board, get them going, it's a year. I mean, honestly, a person without training, just, you know, to fulfill the training requirements and then get experience, and these are only part-time workers. So, when they get them lined up with what Gene does, we're gonna be right at that year to year.
And Barb, could you check with Gene if he's available at 7 o'clock on the 1st? We
Should include him anyway.
why not have Gene with us?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You got James?
Yes.
Yes,
I thought he was gonna be here today.
he's not here. Thought he was coming.
All right, is this, are we clear on open zoning officer? Taken care of there. Item 12 is Michelle McEwen, addressed Barb Bradley. Please accept this letter as formal notification that I am resigning from my position as deputy town clerk with the town of Stafford. Thank you so much for the opportunity to work in this position for the past year and 6 months. I've greatly enjoyed and appreciate the opportunities I've had to serve the people of our community in this capacity. I wish the town well and hope to stay in touch in the future. Sincerely, Michelle McEwen.
I was worried the other one too,
This is also Michelle McEwen. Dear town of Stafford, this letter is to formally notify you that I'm resigning as cleaner. I stay in the town hall will be July 2nd, 2023. I would be happy to meet with you at your convenience to discuss the transition of my duties to my successor. I wish the town well and hope to stay in touch in the future. Michelle McEwen.
Now, as background, didn't she just finish up her bachelor's and take on a full-time job?
She did, well, yes, she works in Brighton in a beauty salon for people that have gone through chemotherapy and things. So she was office manager and she's a cosmetologist. She's also, like you said, she finished her bachelor's in business administration. And in the meantime, as office manager, the owner of the business would like to retire, so she's buying a business. And I will miss her greatly. She was a big asset. But I'm glad for her. It's a good move for her.
I make a motion, we accept the 2 letters and send a letter of regrets and thank yous.
Second?
Second.
Town gonna hire a new cleaner?
Yeah, we're looking to hire a cleaner, Barb, I think. Barb's got some insight on
I didn't hear you, what's
that.
that?
I think Barb's got some insight on that, hold on.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
If you do the whole place, it takes about 3 hours.
And the insight I have, there was 2 people possibly interested, one has decided not to, and I have not heard from the second one yet.
Okay.
Do you have to
Okay.
re-advertise that?
If the board would like me to, yes.
Well, those were the 2 from existing letters of the
No.
heart, no?
Mm-mm.
They had sent it, they simply had sent in, or?
It was just verbal.
Alright. Yeah, then we're gonna have to advertise for it.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Pasek, second by Councilman Deason, concerning the resignation. All in favor, say aye, doing this, accepting the.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
The general code information is, we contract with general code for our, it's called Cody 360, it's available to everybody, it's general information in the town, all the laws, all the, everything. They're very wonderful. Anytime there's a local law, I don't even have to tell them, they check with the state and it's put in there, the whole thing. They're a wonderful resource. Todd came to see me, he's pretty kind, I love him. And he has a proposition for us to add map link to our repertoire, I guess you call it.
Annual maintenance?
Yeah, and it's a little pricey, but it would help with the code and zoning the town and keep us more current. It's really, really cool, but costly. I don't know what your, I'm sorry. I told him I would bring it up to you and see what you think.
Looking through it, but the closest town to our size would be town of Parma in Monroe County, which is a whole lot bigger because it's a suburb of Rochester. Yeah, it is pricey. I would want to automate our online forms before I spend money on mapping.
And some of that information's available at the county level anyway, through the pros and through the county facts, so it would be very beneficial, don't get me wrong, but it's pricey.
You say pricey, how pricey?
$6,000 to start.
Yes.
And the information's already here for everybody, it's just where you find it, this will make you navigate it easier, but is it,
Brings it all
it's
together.
great, it is very good, but is it worth it?
Now, one of the things, and that's why if we get their Batavia's resolutions, we need to do those next month, is that we should be trying to commonize our systems with them so that it could be a smooth transition. And then the other thing is, since we're developing a good relationship with them, that they can be our consultants also when we run into trouble on their resources. Again, that's the problem with having a small town. You're talking part-time jobs all the time, and it's hard to get that expertise.
Yep.
And I think bookkeeping has showed us how well this works. So I guess the
Yeah,
answer is no.
no, I give you, he asked me to, so I did.
You know what, though, Bart, you were right, it is pretty neat.
It
It's,
really is.
I looked through it, and, but I just thought it was too pricey for what we need.
No, I can tell him, thanks, but no thanks.
Blame it on me, I
Yeah, you need a motion to accept it, but not to.
Not to
Nothing in that.
tell, no. So I'll give Todd news tomorrow.
All right. Yes.
I'm not on the agenda, but I do have, if it's appropriate to say something quick.
Okay.
I just want to point something out. I was at the property today on the corner here and also 2 weeks ago. I did some work 2 weeks ago. I had to address some things on the inside of the property, and today I started working on the outside. Both times that I was on that property very shortly, once I was there, a Schofield truck showed up, parked in the parking lot next door. Now, the reason for that is that the Schofield family has made it very clear. I've been approached by the state police and by the sheriff's department that I am not to trespass on that property. That means I can't have access to the store. It was referred to me that they are renting the store, but not the parking lot. And therefore, I'm not to enter the parking lot. So, because of that, I have not addressed anything on that side because I'm not, even though this was over a year ago, I'm not going to accidentally step on the property and what? Now I'm gonna have the state police or the sheriff's there to have me arrested for trespassing. So I'm just letting you know that Mitch, I don't know if he's aware of that, but that was the indication that was brought to me. So if something can be arranged, maybe I can address that side.
Isn't that public space? It's a public.
I'm just telling you what I was told by the sheriff's department, by the and the state police, that was their indication. The Schofield family said if I'm on there, I'm trespassing. Now, I'm just giving the benefit of the doubt. I'm not gonna get into a legal matter. So where does that leave me? You all want me to address something, and yet, here we are. And it's no coincidence that both times I'm there, within a very short time, Schofield truck pulls up, I'm not paying attention who's in the truck, they pull up, I don't know if they're waiting for me to go walk on the property, I'm just letting you be aware of that. So I am gonna continue to work on the front and the back and the other side, but I'm not gonna do anything on that side until we figure out how I can get over there safely.
Where does Schofield fit in? Scheme of things.
Did he buy?
Angler.
Oh,
Angler owns Schofield, okay? Does he not?
No,
no.
English has nothing to do with Schofield.
Okay. Or Angler's truck, whatever, but that's what I saw. So maybe that's what I didn't see it over there, so.
English are on vacation.
I don't know.
They left Sunday. So
Okay.
yeah, they left yesterday.
But that was the last thing with them, so if you want to talk to them and see maybe if they would permit me to go over there to do some work, let's collaborate and try to do that.
Yeah, you just can't take up any parking spots as it gets built.
We can work on a day and a time, that maybe when you're not open, or maybe when there's, again, we have to work together, not just point the finger. So that's where I'm at. So I'm just letting you know why I haven't addressed that. So maybe that was mine, maybe it was a coincidence, but again, I'm just going by the last time I was there. I was told by the sheriffs and the state troopers not to go on the property.
How much, does the building end right at the property line?
The last time we had to get special equipment, and it was very difficult to try to do some work there. And the ladders, they're right on the border. That obviously, there's new regulations and laws that you can't do that anymore. You can't put buildings 1 foot off the property line and all that type of thing. So that kind of caused some of the issue. So when you come up there, the front corner that's on Route 5 is literally maybe 18 inches off the building.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to bring in, that's why we had a special type scaffolding there. We tried to do it that way. It would just be nice to be able to come over there, be in the parking lot, bring enough guys, bang it out, and then get out of there. So that's kind of where I'm at. I will continue to work around the other property, and then maybe, I'm glad Mitch was here so that, maybe we can work something out. So just letting you all know. Oh, and Steve, that cone that's out there, underneath that cone, there's a hole opening up. It's 2 feet deep, and underneath you can see it's 2 foot by 2 foot. I did have DOT stop out. They're aware of it. They're going to bring something out there, but I don't know if you want to maybe try to address it. if a car drives over the blacktop, there's nothing under the blacktop for 2 feet. So,
That's all DOT.
but I'm just letting you know
Yeah,
that,
that's why the cones are.
I know, but I'm like, don't you wanna put like plywood or something there? I mean, it just seemed a little,
I'm sure it's on their list.
that's what he said. Said it's on their list,
Haven't
so.
been down there.
I'm just letting you know, since it's so close, it's on the corner.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Next Monday, we're gonna pave Sweetland Road between Roanoke and Vader. Hopefully Monday, if not Tuesday, sometime next week. Weather permitting, so.
Okay.
We got kicked back a couple days just because, holidays and
Did you
Plants
do
breaking.
Morganville or did the county?
county.
All right.
So,
Well, they're gonna start putting the lines back on the road, now that they got them restoned.
give them a while. Gotta find a striper. There's only one contractor in the state. So, if you wanna buy a paint truck and get in the business, big
Now time to do it, huh?
opportunity.
A lot of insurance.
That's it.
I don't have anything. Like I said, I thought it was pretty productive, the town of Batavia, and maybe we can move forward with that. So,
Thank you for your efforts on that.
We should, if that's the strategy we're gonna follow, we should do a resolution
Yeah.
next month to say this is the,
That's what we're
that'll give us a chance to talk to the candidates,
Yeah.
find out, I mean, if doing that blows up getting any type of candidate, maybe we should cool our heels, but if they go along with it, at least we're telling what the future
Upfront what
could
it's gonna
be.
be, right.
No, I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay.
I have a couple questions, if I can.
Yep.
Water District 12, where are we at? Any update?
No.
No, we're waiting for, I think Eric said, what did Eric say, that the latest thing is,
Well,
I think the contractor isn't.
funding and the.
Yeah, funding, the final funding hasn't come through for the contractor, but I think he said, best case scenario, September, best case scenario. And we're only 2 months away, so that might be a
So it's the funding. Who has the funding end of it?
USDA.
USDA, the,
Rural
Yep.
opportunities,
Yep.
those guys?
US Department of Agriculture.
USDA Department of Agriculture.
But the grant went through and everything.
Yep.
That's awesome.
It's a go, it's
It's
just
just
waiting. for
waiting
it to-
on that.
right, right.
Then my other question in regards to water, did we ever get the survey back from a couple months ago?
I think we let it go, I think we were gonna let it go 6 months for people to, once, because of the putting it out, they were just gonna let it go for 6 months and wait for the end of the 6 months from the newsletter time.
Oh, do people know that they can still do it?
It's on, yeah, you can go online and do it.
I know, but do people know that they can still go in and do the survey? Cause I
I
know
don't-
I ran into someone and I said, did you do the survey? And they said, no. And I said, oh, and they
You
said,
can
well,
still
it's
go and do
passed,
it.
so
You can
they can
still
still
go
go
and
in and do it.
Yep.
Well, I'll have to help her, cause she's not techie.
And don't forget that all that does is tells us
Right,
that we should do
Right.
an actual survey
Right.
of the town.
right, gives you an idea.
Any change in the solar with that company?
Well, again, I reported at last month's meeting, I got a cell phone call from the guy who just stopped in here to introduce himself. He was supposed to send me a business card through a text message, and he never has, so consequently, I don't have a number even to go back with him.
What is the name of it? Do we know?
I-
Oh, no.
He mentioned it fast, I was depending on him sending the card. So where we're at right now, BW is out, these guys have taken over. It sounds like they're still interested in the smaller one. I don't think we've heard anything from, we got that initial blip where they were inquiring about our law. It's gotta be close to a year ago now, about behind.
Over on Buckley and Randall? that
Yes.
area?
Behind the golf course.
Yes. Although if that goes over 20, that's,
That was Article 10.
Mhm.
because don't forget with zoning, as a town, we really can't say whether they're good or bad, especially since they're accepted all across the state. And we don't have the resources to really prove that. I think our study group showed us that we shouldn't incentivize it. So really what we have is the law that we have now. Basically says industrial zones, and there is some,
2,000-foot setback.
yeah, and there are some protections in there for the homeowners. Again, no different than a landfill, but
I would like to invite everyone to the Historical Society's meeting on the 26th, that's next Wednesday. We're having a man named Ted McGraw play the button accordion, and he's going to feature Irish music. So you're all welcome, it sounds like fun. And Amy Swanson would like to thank you, the board, for allowing her to use the parking lot for her son's graduation party. They're just across the field, and a lot of cars parked over here, which kept them off of Route 5, and that was a great idea. Thank you.
question for you. Taste of Stafford, the pandemic really got in the way of that. Are there any plans to move forward with that again, or?
As of right now, there are not. It's not only a case of time has elapsed and we've lost our momentum. And it would have been this week following the Whack-A-Fest on Friday, Saturday. But we also are a tinier community of historical members, and we don't really have the membership to make that, to drive that. It was a fun evening, but an awful lot of work for one evening. When some of these other groups do it for a couple of days, maybe they have even more people, but enough to get that going. It's a lot of work.
All right, and that raises a good question, because I saw from your letter that you're looking for new members. Your core group could you give us an idea of what your core group has dropped from what to what?
We're about 10 healthy members, but we're probably mostly all above 65. And this past week, we lost our member Grace Leenan, who was always a great help. And she was a great member of our community as well, being a home ec teacher, a 4-H leader, a church staunch leader down in Morganville. And so it's just that kind of person that we don't have working with us anymore. It's been about, we did have the Taste of Stafford for 15 years. And it's been at least these 4 years, my math is right, at least 4 years that we haven't had the Taste of Stafford. Thank you for asking.
No, and again, it's, you look at these guys, they're spending 20 hours a month, and you guys poured all kinds of time into that, so.
And it's something that you really have to start in early April to get done by July. And we did have a lot of sponsors that were very, very generous to us, but to crank all that up again would be a lot of work.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
What time is the 26th? You said
Okay,
July.
we pay the
7
bill.
o'clock.
Okay. Make a motion to pay general fund number 7 in the amount of $38,718.84.
Second. That includes the one that was paid for by grant?
Yes.
That we worked that all out.
Motion by Councilman Easton, second by Councilman Pacer to pay general fund abstract number 7, the amount of $38,718.84. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Make a motion to pay highway number 7 for $142,436.01.
Second.
This is all for Barry Stone, most of it's for Barry Stone for, what road, Steve? Griswold.
Yeah.
That was $125,000.
Second. Oh, that's right, I live on there.
I've got him ahead of you. How come you had to go all the way to Barry?
Don't ask.
Well, don't ask, okay. All right, motion by Councilman Deason, second by Councilman Pacer to pay highway abstract 7 in the amount of $142,436.01. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Asphalt plant go down?
Make a motion to pay capital projects number 7 for $4,500. That's for Clerk, Patterson, and Lee.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Deason, second by Councilman Pacer to pay capital projects number 7 in the amount of $4,500. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. That's it, or you got one? Okay.
That's all.
That last one was for Water District 12.
Yeah. So that's on the,
Anything else? The good and welfare of the town of Stafford, a motion to adjourn at 9:05.
second.
Yes, I made it.
Batavia has their, that's why I'm coming late. I hate the city of Batavia. Because I spoke to them.
Finally, sick by Councilman Graham, adjourned. 9:05.